Imagine standing in front of a mirror that reflects not your face, but your decisions, your fears, and your deepest ambitions. That's what money does. It's not just a piece of paper or a number on a bank screen. It's a reflection of your relationship with power. And this is where Niccolò Machiavelli would become your silent advisor. Close your eyes and you can almost hear him say, "How you treat money is how you treat your life." That's why most people never master the art of wealth, because they chase it like a prize and don't understand that it's just a test. Money is a lens that magnifies who you already are, and if you don't understand that, it will use you, not the other way around. Machiavelli watched kings, merchants, and popes fall not because of a lack of gold, but because of the illusion that possessing it was enough to inspire fear. He knew that money only reveals the invisible hierarchy that existed before it. A coward who becomes rich simply finds armor to hide behind. A fool who succeeds simply buys more expensive ways to prove his vanity to the world. A disciplined person becomes more dangerous because money reinforces his coldness, patience, and calculation. That's the first shock. Money doesn't create character, it reinforces it. That's why some people become unbearable when they get rich, and others become unapproachable. That's why some become targets and others become legends. Have you ever wondered why ordinary people go crazy when they suddenly get a lot of money? Lotteries, inheritances, businesses that grow too fast. Many lose everything in a few years, not because the money disappeared, but because their minds were not ready for the burden it brings. Machiavelli would say that a ruler who does not know how to manage a small fiefdom will never be able to rule an empire. The same applies to you. If you don't know how to manage your salary, you won't be able to manage your fortune. And when the money comes, it will only accelerate your downfall. This is a trap that almost no one sees. Most people believe that they will become powerful as soon as they get rich. But the truth is that if you weren't strong before, money will only reveal your weakness to the whole world. Think for a moment about what money does to people. A raise in salary makes some people arrogant. A financial blow turns others into paranoids. Unexpected luck changes friendships, fuels envy, and destroys families. Money is a psychological trigger that few people know how to decipher. That is why Machiavelli warned us, if you want to become a master of the game, stop thinking of money as a reward and start seeing it as a tool. It does not exist to comfort you, but to move pieces on the board. The question you should ask yourself is not how to make more money, but how to use money to make others reveal their true nature. Because in the end, that is what money is. It reveals intentions. And those who learn to see what it reveals, learn to see the human heart. This is Machiavelli's first great lesson. Never let money dictate your value. You must dictate the price of money. If you need it to feel powerful, you are already at a disadvantage. You are already a subject. True power begins when you are able to maintain the same position with or without gold in your pocket. It is at this moment that money ceases to be your master and becomes your servant. But reaching this point requires something rare: discipline. Discipline not to spend in order to prove something. Discipline not to buy in order to please someone. Discipline not to brag to those who are not important. It is in this silence that presence grows, reputation is strengthened, and others begin to bow down before you even speak. Machiavelli knew that a ruler's presence should be so powerful that simply entering a room could change the behavior of others. This cannot be bought with gold. It is built on a combination of mystery, firmness, and reputation. Money can open doors, but presence opens souls. And in the game of power, opening doors is useful, but opening souls is ultimate. That's why you need to change your relationship with money before you change your bank account. Because if you get rich without being prepared, you'll just be another fragile rich man, another tail waiting to be overthrown. And Machiavelli despised fragility. For him, there was nothing more dangerous than a ruler who confuses wealth with power. Power is not born of wealth, it is born of respect. and respect is born of what you can do without being asked. So stop now and ask yourself, what does money say about you right now? Do you feel anxious when you don't have enough? Are you jealous of those who have more? Do you feel the need to brag about your achievements? Each of these answers is a mirror pointing inward. Machiavelli would say that a poor but fearsome prince is better than a rich and ridiculed prince, because it is the fear of losing respect that keeps others in check, not the glitter of coins. Therefore, your task is to turn money into a symbol of your discipline, not your vanity. It should be used to create structure, not to demonstrate achievements, because the day you use money to prove who you are, you lose, and that's where the inevitable catch comes in. If money is a mirror, how can you prevent it from revealing your weaknesses to the world? How can you turn every penny into a silent ally rather than a public admission of your insecurity? This question opens the door to the next step, the art of secrecy, creating in silence and becoming a living enigma, because in the game of power, simply having resources is not enough. You need to learn to hide behind them and make others wonder, what else does he have that I can't see? There comes a moment when money ceases to be just a mirror and becomes a beacon lighting the way for you to the world. This is where the danger begins. When others begin to see clearly what you have, they also begin to calculate what they can take away. Machiavelli warned the Florentine princes never to flaunt their power, never to reveal the true size of their army or the exact amount of their treasury, not out of cowardice, but out of strategy, because what can be seen can be measured, and what can be measured can be attacked. The first mistake of those who acquire wealth is to turn it into a spectacle. Cars that attract attention, clothes that scream status, social networks that turn into showcases. The problem is not luxury itself, but its publicity. The more you show, the more predictable you become, and predictability is a weakness. Think about how many times you've seen someone change their behavior. A friend you once treated as an equal, upon discovering that they have become wealthy, begins to demand favors. A distant relative reappears with requests. Strangers begin to weigh their words carefully, not out of respect, but out of self-interest. The perception of what you have changes how the world treats you, and if you don't think strategically, you find yourself surrounded by people who don't see you for who you are. They will value what you represent in numbers. Machiavelli would say that a wise ruler must always keep his true power a secret, even from his closest allies. Let them think you have less than you actually do. Let them think you can still be underestimated, because the person who seems to have little but controls much is the most dangerous of all. Look at what is happening in the modern world. People share their wealth on social media as if it were a moral achievement. They publish financial reports, discuss investments, and turn their lives into a financial spectacle. The result? Envy grows, enemies multiply, and plans become vulnerable. Machiavelli would teach that the main security of a sovereign lies not in city walls, but in the ignorance of others about what lies behind them. If no one knows how much property you have, no one knows how much it would take to overthrow you. Uncertainty, a weapon more powerful than any army. By keeping the world guessing, you maintain control. But hiding does not mean living in poverty or pretending to be weak. This means building in such a way that your growth is quiet, almost imperceptible. True power accumulates when no one is watching. It consists of contracts that don't make headlines, financial transactions that don't attract attention, and cautious decisions that one day reveal an empire built in the shadows. And when that happens, the consequences are so great that it seems as if they came out of nowhere. That is the advantage of quiet movement. By the time the world realizes what you have created, it will be too late to stop it. Machiavelli would call this a bloodless coup, a moment when you change the balance of power imperceptibly until it becomes inevitable. Imagine a man who founded a modest company without fanfare, without aggressive marketing, simply by creating a reliable product. For years, no one pays any attention to him, and suddenly, This company becomes the market leader. Competitors wonder why they didn't see it coming. Partners try to get closer too late. Enemies realize they have no way to attack. That's the beauty of growing up in the dark. You don't need to defend yourself because no one is ready for battle. The same applies to your personal life. If people know exactly how much you earn, how much you spend, how much you have saved, they have the perfect card to use against you. But if they only have fragments, rumors, and assumptions, they lose their balance. And it is in this space of doubt that power flourishes. Human psychology is fascinating. When you hide, you provoke. People begin to fill the void with their own assumptions. Some will think you have a lot, others that you have little. Some will fear you, others will underestimate you. And every reaction can be used to your advantage. Machiavelli would say that a ruler should allow the people to talk, spread rumors, and imagine greatness. After all, the more they imagine, the more you control the narrative. You become a mythical character that no one can fully understand. This is what makes you invulnerable. Those who do not know the extent of your power hesitate before attacking, and hesitation is your greatest ally. This is where Machiavelli's second great lesson comes in. Don't let your wealth speak louder than your strategy. If the world only knows you for how much money you have, you've already lost. You've become a target, a number, a goal. Money should be a sign that you are in control, not a cry for help and recognition. Silence is your best shield. It is what turns money into something that works for you, not against you. Therefore, create anonymity. Let others think that you are just surviving, when in fact, you are expanding your holdings. Make your enemies underestimate you. Make the curious ignore you. The less attention you attract, the more opportunities you will have to grow without interference. And this is where the story gets even darker and more exciting, because simply hiding is not enough if you still depend on sources controlled by others. If your money is in the hands of someone who can freeze it, tax it, cut it, or manipulate it, you are still not free. And this is where we enter the next part. Building invisible fortifications, multiple sources of financial power, structures that cannot be destroyed with a single blow. This is Machiavelli's third lesson. Never rely on what another person controls. Create your own system or live forever dependent on someone else's. And it is at this point that the narrative deepens, because true freedom begins when you become inalienable, unattainable, and, above all, irreplaceable. Few men realize that almost everything a woman does in a relationship is a silent test. These are not explicit checks or obvious proofs, but small daily experiments designed to find out if you really are who you seem to be. This is where Machiavelli would be your most valuable advisor. He would say that a wise ruler never reacts impulsively to the winds of public opinion. He observes, evaluates, and only then makes a decision. The same applies here. By creating tension, she is not simply looking for conflict. She is looking for answers that she cannot put into words. Are you strong enough to lead me? Can you be trusted when the world is falling apart? Think about how many times you have changed your plans just to please someone, even though you knew it was not in your best interest. How many times have you said yes to avoid an argument, even if it meant giving up something important? Each of these moments sends a signal. You may think you are being kind, but in her eyes, it may look like weakness. And weakness is what she fears most, even if she never says so. For thousands of years, the female mind has been shaped by the search for protection, stability, and direction. When you give in to her every whim without thinking twice, you show that you cannot withstand greater pressure. And then the question arises, how could she entrust her life, her future, and even her children to someone who cannot stand up for himself, even in the face of minor setbacks? The answer is simple. She can't. And that's why, even if unintentionally, she tests you. Every little provocation, every harsh word, every unreasonable request is like a stone thrown at you to see if your structure will remain intact or collapse. It's an invisible court, and you are being judged every moment. Now imagine this scene. She is angry, raising her voice, accusing you of something you did not do. What do? Most men play along, desperately defend themselves, shout, argue, try to prove their innocence. And in doing so, they fall right into the trap, because the test was not in the accusation, but in your reaction. A man who loses control confirms the suspicion of his instability. A man who remains silent out of anger sends a signal that he is afraid. But a man who responds calmly, firmly, and without anger sends a signal of his steadfastness. It is at this moment that the dynamic changes. You are not just going through the test, you are passing it. Have you ever wondered why some arguments keep coming up, even when you thought everything had been resolved? Why does she keep coming back to the same thing, insisting on the same mistake, repeating the same provocation because the test has not yet been passed? It's not about the essence of the quarrel, but about your behavior. She wants to see if your strength is real or just an illusion. She wants to see if you have convictions or if you change under her emotional outbursts. When you understand this, you stop taking everything personally. You stop reacting as if it were a deadly attack and start treating it for what it is, a test of consistency. But here's the danger. Many men misinterpret this concept. They think that passing the test means dominating, shouting louder, winning the argument. But this is just another form of weakness disguised as strength. True leadership is silent. It does not need ostentatious displays. Machiavelli would say that a wise ruler knows when to use force and when to create the appearance of force. In relationships, this means staying calm, looking your conversation partner in the eye and saying calmly, "I understand your feelings, but this is how it will be." This phrase, spoken without aggression, is worth 1,000 shouts because it expresses power without violence. Do you see the difference between control and leadership? Control breeds fear, resistance, and resentment. Leadership breeds trust, respect, and desire. When you respond to her tests with dignity, you are not punishing her. You are showing her that you can protect what is important. This calms her deepest instincts because, deep down, she doesn't want you to bend. She wants to feel that she has someone by her side who can stand up to her when necessary. Someone who won't break under the first pressure from the outside world. Think of a time when you stood your ground, even when she was angry. What happened next? Maybe she complained, maybe she was silent, but something changed. Later, she became calmer, maybe even more affectionate. That's because, on a very basic level, you passed the test, and passing the test restores respect. And when respect returns, desire follows. But if you think that means winning just once, you're wrong. These trials never end. They are part of the relationship, part of her nature. Each new challenge is a new opportunity to prove your constancy. With each quiet victory, you strengthen the bond. With every defeat, a small crack appears, and when these cracks accumulate, respect is lost forever. Are you ready to be the one who stands strong through all these trials? This is where the story gets even more interesting. When you realize that trials are inevitable, you stop running from them. You begin to see them as opportunities to demonstrate your value, not threats. The discussion ceases to be a war and becomes a ritual. Every storm becomes an opportunity to show that your core is unshakable. And every time you maintain this position, she gets closer because she begins to believe that you are the man who can guide her. In the next stages, we will look at how you can further develop this strength. You will learn how to turn every challenge into a point of deep connection, how to use these situations to create closeness instead of distance, and how to become a man who not only passes her tests, but also admires her for who he is. Every day there comes a moment when your relationship with money becomes even more dangerous, a moment when it begins to influence not only your decisions, but also the decisions of those around you. It was at this stage that Machiavelli refined his advice. He said that you need to observe not only how money affects you, but also how it becomes a filter through which others reveal their true nature. After all, nothing reveals a person's true nature like the presence or absence of money. Have you ever noticed how people change when money is at stake? Families quarrel over inheritance. Friendships fall apart over debts. Business partners become sworn enemies when profits start to grow. This does not happen by accident. It is proof that money is the most effective test of loyalty. Machiavelli would warn that a wise ruler never trusts words of support or gestures of affection when they are abundant. He waits for a crisis or creates a small deficit to see who will stay with him without getting anything in return. And that's when you need to open your eyes. Which of your loved ones respects you only for the benefits? Who is unhappy with your success? Who begins to doubt your value as soon as you climb a step higher? Interesting statistics. More than 70% of lottery winners lose everything within 5 years. Not only because they spend thoughtlessly, but also because money attracts people who would otherwise never be around. Fake friends, enterprising relatives, partners who only show up when there is something to gain. Each of these new allies is, in essence, a test. And if you don't know how to apply Machiavelli's principles, you will be overwhelmed by the burden of expectations. A ruler who hands out rewards indiscriminately soon discovers that those who kneel before him do so not out of respect, but out of habit. And as soon as the rewards stop, they rise up against him. Have you ever wondered how people would react if their source of income disappeared for a month? If the flow of your benefits were interrupted? It is in situations like these that true allies reveal themselves. Some will offer help, others will leave silently, and still others will secretly rejoice at your downfall. And it is this pattern of reactions that should determine your future decisions. Machiavelli would recommend using money strategically, almost like a scalpel, to heal or cut. He would give enough to test you, but never enough to make you complacent, because when people become dependent, they cease to respect the source and begin to treat it as an obligation. There is a well-known story about a 15th-century Italian banker who helped young merchants start businesses, but he did so in an unusual way. At the height of each enterprise's growth, he would temporarily withdraw his support, not to ruin them, but to see how they would fare without him. Those who despaired were considered weak and unworthy of further loans. Those who found a way to stay afloat, even with difficulty, received twice as much investment upon their return. This is how he separated strategic allies from parasites. The question is how this principle can be applied today. For example, you can observe how friends and partners react to your financial boundaries. Who will understand without offense, and who will accuse you of selfishness? Who will remain loyal even when there is no benefit? This is the purest form of character testing. After all, when there is no money, only those who truly appreciate its presence remain. And it is at this moment that you need to maintain your strength. If you are emotionally dependent on their approval, the fear of losing them will manipulate you. But if you can remain calm even when they turn away from you, you will master the game. Machiavelli would say that a ruler must be generous enough to win allies, but discerning enough not to make enemies among those who remain on the sidelines. This requires balance, composure, and a critical eye on the motives that drive each person around him. Ask yourself, why is this person here? What do they really want from me? What would they do if I could no longer offer what I offer? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are the foundation for building a network of loyalty that does not fall apart in the face of scarcity. And here's the dark twist. It's not enough to find out who is loyal. You have to learn how to shape loyalty. Money can be used as punishment or reward, but a true master uses it as education. He teaches those around him what behavior will be rewarded and what will be ignored. And he does this without long speeches or threats, simply with the cold mathematics of the presence or absence of resources. Gradually, everyone understands that some relationships bring people closer, while others create distance. And when they begin to adapt themselves, you realize that you are no longer dealing with requests, but with a system. At this point, you need to be especially careful. After all, when the system starts working, you become the center of gravity of your own sphere of influence. People revolve around you, adjusting their steps so as not to lose access to what you represent. It is tempting to use this power vindictively, but Machiavelli warned that a ruler who punishes out of emotion loses respect. Punishment should be rare, silent, and calculated. Just as rewards should be unexpected and precise, so you foster not only obedience, but also admiration. Because deep down, people don't just want money, they want to feel part of something bigger, something that gives meaning to their efforts. And when you learn to give that sense of belonging, money will cease to be the center of the relationship. It will become merely a means to an end. This is how empires are maintained without bloodshed, only through ceremonies, symbols, and rituals that remind people that their place depends on maintaining this order. Are you ready to use money in this way? Are you ready to turn every transaction into a silent lesson in power? Because in the next stage, we will look at something even more dangerous: how to turn this network of loyalty into something that will stand the test of time, creating not just followers, but heirs to your system. This is how you will cease to be just a player and become the architect of the playing field. There comes a moment when power ceases to be measured by the amount of money and begins to be measured by the degree of people's dependence on you. It is at this moment that Machiavelli becomes more blunt, almost ruthless in his advice. He said that a true ruler strives not only to accumulate wealth, but also to build a network of relationships where everyone needs him in one way or another to preserve their property. Money ceases to be just a resource and becomes an invisible mechanism that regulates collective behavior. Look around. A person who pays salaries rarely needs to raise their voice to achieve obedience. An investor who decides where to invest capital does not need to persuade anyone to act, because people shape their actions to attract him. This is a secret that few people understand. The one who distributes money controls the situation. The one who has the power to say yes or no to access to resources becomes the true decision maker. Money itself is not what makes this person powerful. It is their position in the structure. Machiavelli would say that a ruler who arbitrarily hands out rewards is weak. They need to make every concession seem deserved, every service a reward. Only in this way does it create not only gratitude, but also a sense of hierarchy that keeps everyone in their rightful place. Have you ever noticed how people change when they want something that only you can give them? Observe how their tone of voice changes, their posture changes, their words become more cautious. This is the gravitational effect of the power they occupy. And the more inaccessible you become, the stronger this effect is. Scarcity increases the value of everything. Machiavelli taught that a ruler should never be too accessible. Popularity reduces respect. A wise ruler makes himself close enough to be remembered, but distant enough to make every meeting feel meaningful. This is an important point. It is not about becoming cold or inhuman, but about understanding that excessive presence reduces your authority. Imagine a boss who is always available, always trying to please. He quickly becomes the target of insults and manipulation, and his decisions lose their weight. Compare this to a leader who rarely appears, rarely speaks, but when he makes a decision, no one dares to challenge him. This aura is not accidental. It is constructed, and you too can create your own by making your time, attention, and resources rare and valuable. The question you should ask yourself is, how can you make access to you an experience that will change the behavior of others? One of the answers lies in how you reward. Don't give everything away at once. Don't completely satisfy desires. Give enough to create momentum, but keep something for yourself. This keeps people interested, keeps them coming back, and creates a cycle of dependency that is not easy to break. This is how entire systems are controlled, not by directly accumulating wealth, but by creating incentives. There is a curious story about some feudal lords who, in peacetime, kept their vassals indebted not only with gold, but also with favors. They seized land, allowed the use of resources, and granted temporary privileges, but always in such a way that the vassals had to periodically renew these relationships. This constant dependence ensured that even without war, the Lord's power remained unshakable because the fear of losing privileges was stronger than any motivation to revolt. And that's where the complexity lies. When you control access to money or opportunities, you don't need to manipulate them directly. People adapt. They control, censor, and shape themselves so as not to lose what they have achieved. At this stage, your power becomes virtually invisible. You don't give orders, but everyone obeys. Not because they fear your power, but because they fear its absence. Machiavelli would say that this is the pinnacle of political art, when a ruler rules without needing to impose. But be careful. This power must be used wisely. If you take away too much, it breeds resentment. If you give too much, it breeds complacency. It's a delicate dance that requires constant analysis of your environment. You need to know when to tighten and when to loosen, when to reward and when to deny. These fluctuations create an atmosphere of anticipation, and it is anticipation that keeps people within your sphere of influence. If they know exactly what to expect, they stop trying. But if they live in doubt, they will continue to move in your direction. Ask yourself, are you creating a system that inspires genuine loyalty or just momentary fear? Fear can control for a while, but ultimately, it turns into hatred. Loyalty is formed when people feel that their presence is irreplaceable, and that requires more than just money. It requires vision, cohesion, and strategic fairness. You need to reward not only those you like, but also those who strengthen your system. You need to show that every act of loyalty is noticed and every betrayal is recorded, even if you do not react immediately. Machiavelli warned that immediate revenge is dangerous. It satisfies the ego, but reveals its secret. A wise ruler knows how to wait. He allows the traitor to think that he has escaped, to feel safe, and then, at the most opportune moment, he deprives him not only of his favor, but also of his position, access, and opportunity to return. This sends a stronger signal than any public punishment. No one is above the structure, and the structure is you. When you reach this stage, something unusual happens. You cease to be just a rich person and become a living institution. Your presence regulates the situation. Your absence creates chaos. People start to think twice before making a decision that might not suit you, not out of fear of direct retribution, but because of the risk of losing their place in the order you have created. It is then that you realize that money was never the goal. It was just the glue that held everything together until your influence became self-sufficient. In the next stage, the task becomes even more difficult. How can you ensure that this order is maintained even in your absence? How can you transform your power into something sustainable that continues to shape behavior even when you are not around? This is what we will look at next, the final stage, where silence and discipline become your main weapons, and you cease to be just a leader and become a force that shapes the destinies of those around you. We have reached the end of this journey, and perhaps you have already realized that money was never the main character in this story. It has always been the backdrop, the tool, the mirror that reveals who you are and who surrounds you. Now, the task is not just to understand what has been said, but to turn it into concrete actions. Machiavelli would say that knowledge without application is merely entertainment. True wisdom is confirmed on the battlefield of life, and this is where you need to act. First, take a deep breath and look at what you have already achieved. Take an honest inventory of your relationship with money. Ask yourself, how many of my decisions are dictated by fear? How many by desire and approval? Where do I give my power away to systems, people, or institutions that can overthrow me with a single move? This self-analysis is the first step because it is impossible to build a fortress without first studying the terrain. Then make a plan to achieve independence. It doesn't have to be grandiose at first, but it does have to be solid. Create a second source of income, even if it is small. Set aside part of your earnings, even if it is symbolic. Protect your resources from impulsive decisions. Machiavelli taught that a prudent ruler prepares his defenses before the war begins, and you should do the same. Think about how you will live if you lose your main source of income tomorrow. Don't live in fear. Live in freedom. Now look at those around you. Who strengthens you? Who drains you? Who is here out of sincere devotion? And who is here only for short-term gain? It's not about kicking everyone out. It's about closing the distance. Bring those who contribute to your vision closer. Create healthy barriers against those who drain your energy, and use money as a tool to reinforce this cycle. Reward behavior that reinforces the order you want to build. Withdraw support from those who sabotage or disrespect your boundaries, not with anger, but with purpose. Practical exercise. For the next 30 days, set a simple rule. No financial decisions made in haste. Wait 24 hours before buying something big, lending money, or making a deal. This simple discipline will help you get ahead of 90% of people because it transforms impulse into strategy. And with every calm decision, you send a signal to the world. I am in control. It's also time to master the art of strategic silence. You don't have to tell everyone about your financial life, what you own, how much you earn, how much you save. That's yours. The world should only see what you want it to see. Let others guess, make up stories, and speculate. Secrecy is one of the oldest tools of power, and it works because it gives you time to act without being subjected to premature attacks. And never forget that the ultimate goal is not to accumulate wealth out of vanity, but to develop the ability to say no, to walk away when something goes against your principles, not to accept disrespect, blackmail, or fear as the price for maintaining your lifestyle. This is true freedom. This is the kind of life Machiavelli would advise you to build, a life so solid that the world cannot blackmail you. I want you to get more than just ideas from this video. I want you to leave with a plan. Choose one small action today that will bring you closer to this ideal. Open a separate investment account. Learn a skill that generates income. Cut back on expenses that are holding you back. Small actions add up, and soon you will realize that you not only understand the rules of the game, but are also playing to win. If this content has touched you, clarified something, or made you uncomfortable, that's good. It means you're ready for the next level. So, here's my invitation. Subscribe to the Deep Psyche channel, like this video, and